Are you in the US on a visa and you're not 100% sure when you're required to leave the country? Well, this video is going to show you how to find out what that date is and also how critically important it is to know exactly when you have to leave. Hi, I'm Andrea Shev, and I'm the managing attorney at Shev Law Group in Los Angeles, California. I've been doing immigration law for over 17 years, and I put together these videos to give you concise, easy, reliable information on immigration issues that come up all the time. So don't forget, please, if you enjoy this video and you find it informational, please don't forget to subscribe, and also don't forget to hit that bell so you're notified the next time a video comes out. Now let's get started. Why do you need to know the date that you must leave the country every time you enter on a visa into the United States? Well, if you don't know the date, then you might risk overstaying, which is a big issue when you're trying to get back into the country the next time. So how do we know what that date is? Or how should we secure for sure what that date is? Well, you need something called an I-94. In the old days, which weren't so long ago, we used to be given, when we entered the country, an actual piece of paper that was stapled into our passport that said exactly the date we entered, the status we entered in under, and also the date we had to leave. But that's no more. Now everything is done digitally. So we have to actually, once we get into the country, go online and check manually to print out what that I-94 says. Now you're probably asking, but a lot of times maybe I get a stamp in my passport that says when I'm supposed to leave. But a lot of times that stamp is not the same date, the same date as the date on the I-94. So the I-94 is the one that is critically important because that is the one that is in the computer system that's attached to the passport that you enter on. Therefore, it's important to know exactly what date that is, because that's the date that will track in the system if you've overstayed your time in the United States. So let's do this in this video. We're gonna go and we're gonna look exactly how to find your I-94 on the internet. And then I'm gonna show you how it looks and how to read it. And also we're gonna go through some other tidbits that you can get off of that actual website. But it's critically important that you know what that is. And also don't forget that just because an I-94 says a date, it doesn't mean that it's always correct. And it is your responsibility to make sure that that date is correct, which is another reason why you absolutely need to pull that I-94 every single time you enter the country. I cannot stress that enough, but every single time you step foot in the United States and you enter on a visa, you should pull your I-94 offline, which I'm going to show you how to do in just a moment. Because a lot of times we find out that human error or computer error will be given the wrong date. And we'll think that we have until X date, but then we look at our I-94 and we're like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to leave in 2 weeks? I was supposed to leave, I thought, in 6 months. So you need to get that corrected immediately, because there is nothing worse than finding out after the fact that they made a mistake, the Border Patrol, on issuing you a date to leave that was incorrect, and you've now overstayed it 6 months or 5 months or a year sometimes. So it is critically important and essential that you pull that I-94 every single time you come in and check it. Okay, let's now go to the website and actually show you how to find and how to pull your I-94. Okay, here we are on the website that will allow you to download your most recent I-94. The website address is up here, but it's also listed below in the description underneath this YouTube video for future reference if you need it. So there's lots of things that you can do on this website, not just get your I-94. You can get things like your travel history, which is always something that's nice to look at and make sure that it's correct. You could also apply for a new I-94 if that's something that you need in the future. But we're going to focus today on getting most recent I-94. So go ahead and click on that. And it takes you to a page that says get your most recent I-94, and it asks for your travel information, the traveler information. So this page then asks for your first and last name, your birth date, month and year and day, and it then asks for your passport number and the country of issuance. Remember that this passport number and country of issuance is related to the document that you use on your last entry into the United States. So it has to be the passport that they got and received and scanned when you went through customs on your last entry. If for some reason, let's say you had that passport, but you lost it or it was stolen, you still have to use that number here in order to access your last I-94. Also, it doesn't matter that after you enter the country, for some reason it expired, that passport, and you have a new one now, you still have to use the number from that expired passport if that's the one you entered with. It's very important or you won't get the last record. The other thing to keep in mind on this page is that when you have your first and last name, it's the first and last name as it was entered or recorded on your entry. So you want to, if it was first, middle, and last on entry, that's what you want to put in. If it was just first and last, then that's what you want to put in. But it's usually corresponding with the way your name is on the documentation when you last entered the country. Okay? Once you put this information in, you will then hit easily next, and then next. And then because we didn't put that information in, we're not going to get, obviously, our I-94. But I have here for you an actual I-94 for you to actually look at to see how it would look if you did hit next and went to the next page. Now, we've obviously redacted this one because we want to make sure that our clients are kept private, but I still wanted to show you how it would look and go through a few pieces of information on this that are critical. First of all, the admission I-94 record number is something that is assigned to every single person upon entry. It's used to identify you in the system as someone who legally entered the country. So that is usually, that number is requested and used on any kind of documentation or correspondence with USCIS or applications or petitions. They always need to see the I-94 number. Most recent entry date would be the date that you last came in. Verify that that date is correct. The class of admission is the actual admission class that you entered in. Did you enter as, this person entered as an E2 investor? Now, maybe some people enter, as E3s or O1s or B1, B2s or F1s or L1s. So whatever it is, it would be right here. Now, this is something that sometimes gets mistakenly inputted incorrectly into the system by the officers. So you want to double check, because if you entered as an E2 and they accidentally put a B1, there's going to be severe ramifications later when they find out that you were here as a B1 instead of an E2 and you were working. So that's something that you have to make sure that you verify is done correctly and is accurate. Next, admit until date. This is the biggest one that is the most important on this piece of paper, and why I'm doing this whole video is so you can look and make sure that this is the date that you thought it was and it should be. So on this person, it was to have to leave July 26, 2020, which is coming up, right? So that means that they must leave the country before July 26th of 2020. If they don't leave, then they go out of status and they start accruing unlawful presence. Now, if you do find an error on this, there is somewhere where you can go to get it corrected, which is usually the deferred inspection units at most airports. You can bring with you your I-94, your visa, and your passport, and they can look at it and make sure that it was done correctly. And if it wasn't, and it was their error, they will correct it. Okay, now that you know exactly where to go and how to pull your I-94, don't forget to do it every single time you come in. The website that we went to is down below in the description so you can keep track of it. And please remember to do it every time. Please also don't forget that just because your I-94 date says one thing and your visa says something else, the I-94 always controls. It is not your visa once you've stepped over the border into the United States. That is critically important also to remember, that the visa is the document that lets you enter the United States, and it has to be a valid, up-to-date document, but it is not the date that controls how long you can stay in the United States. For a great example, a lot of B1, B2 visas, visitor visas, are issued for 10 years. But they will never let you stay in the US for 10 years. So if you haven't noticed, if you do have a B1, B2 visa, it says 10 years, but when you come in, you know what your I-94 usually says? 6 months. Because you only have a 6-month stay every time you enter the country on the B1, B2. It's a perfect example to show you how there's an inconsistency between the two dates and how critically important it is to know what the date is that you must leave. Also, the officers have a huge amount of discretion when they're giving dates to leave. So make sure that you check it for that reason also. Because just because an officer is required to give you a certain amount of date, a certain date for you to leave, it doesn't mean that they have to give you that date. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it gave you a lot of good information. I hope you will never forget to pull your I-94 every single time you come in the US. Have a wonderful day and stay safe.